Hard times are ahead as we see this disaster being formed. America is heading in the direction of a fallen empire. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Let's look at this article out of CNBC. Job creation kept the pace in December, with the U.S. economy creating 252,000 jobs to close out the year, while unemployment rate dropped to 5.6%. You should know that everything is just fine. You can read Jim Cramer's top 10 stocks for the year. You invest in them and you will be a billionaire. That's right. So we need a real heavy dose of reality after getting all this propaganda. If you read the newspaper, you actually pick up a newspaper and flip through it, you'll get about 99.9% propaganda. But here at the Money GPS, we need to break down this to get the real truth. Euroslide could take it to parity with the dollar. Now, of course, I just suggested to you that America is going to fall. So is it America that's going to fall? Is it the EU that's going to fall? The entire Euro area? What exactly is it? And the fact is that all dominoes will fall. I've said that 100 times, and I'll say it 1,000 more. You need to understand that, yes, right now, the US dollar is doing better. But when you look at the wider scheme of things, they're all bad. Yes, right here we had it going down to 118, and that is historically going back into the 1999 levels. I talked about it before, won't get into it, but we see how the real economic situation in the US is, and we have a lot to worry about. Let's go here. They're talking about the GDP growth that they had. They said it was 5%, and it was so amazing how well they did. But they said this: if you didn't count payments made by consumers towards mandatory government healthcare, Obamacare, GDP may have been negative growth for the last quarter. Now, that's not even factoring in all of the things that I've been talking about, just specifically the Obamacare. And that one thing would bring it into negative growth. So these statistics are all fake, they're all phony, but of course we have to sit here and deal with them all day long. Let's talk about another one. US factories grow at the slowest pace in 6 months. But of course, if we look over the longer trend, we see that US factories are simply in decline because their jobs are being shipped overseas. U.S. manufacturing expands at the slowest pace in 6 months in December, though growth is still solid. Yes, that's right. They're worried about this story that really at this point it is really quite old, because you look at the fact that they say, yeah, everything is just fine. We're having a little slowdown now. And even in the recession, it took them a year to admit that they were in a recession. And this is the same thing right here. And it's not just the US either. We can see this in China. Construction spending month over month. You could see the declines that are occurring right here. We're going to move on. Saudi prince says that oil will never be above $100 a barrel again. I guess he doesn't believe in this inflationary mode that will eventually take place. However, he says $100, never again. He also said this, which I found very interesting, that there is a theory about this oil price to pressure the Russians, how they're working together with the U.S. I talked about it back in October, and here we are today. Many sites have shared my same views since then. And he says 2 words: baloney and rubbish. I'm telling you, there's no way the Saudis would do this. This is going to hurt Saudi Arabia. And the reason that I find this really laughable is because it's a war. In a war, they will do anything. The U.S. and the Saudis must be working together right now in order to perform sanctions on Russia, on Iran. And this is what they'll do. It's not something that they necessarily want to do, but if it's going to mean that they are partnered up with the US, they are probably being compensated in some way. We don't know for sure, but to just go out and flat out suggest that it's not happening, that's really ignorant. And he said, but I'll tell you, Saudi Arabia and Russia are in bed together here. We're both being hurt simultaneously. There's no political conspiracy whatsoever against Russia. That's right. This just goes to show you how funny the propaganda is, because they know in this type of interview it's going to get a lot of attention, and obviously this type of information will be spread throughout the mainstream media, and it's just going to go to show you that he is there to be nothing more than a propaganda arm for the Saudis and for the wider world. In my book, I talked about oil prices and the tension that is caused around it. The Shah told the New York Times in 1973, certainly, and how you Western nations increase the price of wheat you sell us by 300%, and the same for sugar and cement. You buy our crude oil, sell it back to us refined as petrochemicals at 100 times the price you've paid to us. It's only fair that from now on you should pay more for oil. Let's say 10 times more. And this is exactly the kind of thing that happens. You see the tension that forms in between nations, all because of a single commodity, and one being the most important, or one of the most important, and that is oil. Let's move on to this right here, which is really what worries me ultimately in the wider grand scheme of things. Venezuelans throng grocery stores under military protection. You could see this right here, the military's on the streets, the people lined up just to get simple food items. They're looking for detergent, they're looking for soap. What's going to happen here when you have an inflation rate that has gone far beyond 60%, and it's going to continue? When you have turmoil, when you have tension, when you have geopolitical actions, when you have civil unrest, you have these type of things that take place. So I asked the question to you, what's stopping the US from entering this similar scenario? What's stopping the EU from this similar scenario? Look at what happened in Brussels, a country like Brussels, and it erupts because of certain things. They're upset about austerity measures one day, perhaps they're upset about the government the next day, and this has happened in so many different cities, and we see it here now being a big problem in Venezuela. And I tell you right now, from the historical analysis that I've done, this could very well happen in every major city around the world for different reasons. And this is another thing that I've seen, article out of Reuters. Nordic countries are leading a shift by rich nations towards cashless societies, providing a test case whether the lower cost and convenience of using the cards and smartphones for payments outweigh the risks of fraud and some people left behind. Now, we look at the cashless society, and they even say right here, we're headed for more and more for a cashless society. This, obviously, on the surface level, you may like using your plastic cards. It may be fine. It may really be just something you don't even think about. However, when they can maintain control over it, whether it's, for example, with Venezuela, where they maintain control over basically everything in the people's lives, you have other countries that use communism to control every single thing that the people do. They ration their food, they ration their allowance, let's say, and this is the kind of thing. The more control that the government has, the worse off it is in most cases. Then you look at situations where you have maximum control over the economic system, and you see that it just does not work. Why? Because big business always finds their way inside of the government. They always are there to basically find a way to have their own cronies, to get in there and really make money for themselves, for their partners. So this is the kind of shift that I see occurring, that's happening right before our very eyes. I want to just get into this thing before I close off for today. I'm going to be giving out a live Q&A session on YouTube. I hope you guys are interested in that. I really want to know that if you are, and we can just basically get into a few issues. You can ask me questions live and I can respond to you on the air, and I think this would be a really great idea. I spent a few days ago, I spent maybe about 3 to 4 hours replying to emails and answering comments, and this may be a way for me to do so interactively. You guys can reply to me live, and I can talk right back to you, and we can do it on the air. This would be a great thing to do, and I believe there would be a way for then I could save the video and you could watch it later. What I'd like to know from you is, obviously we're in different time zones, we're all around the world. I'm in the Eastern time zone. I'd like to know what time, what days would be preferable to you. I'm not really sure where you want to go with this. If you're even interested, perhaps at this point, just let me know if this is something that you're interested in. You can comment down below, or you can email me directly. So I'd like to know your thoughts on that. If you found this video informative, please give me a thumbs up, and don't forget to become an insider. The Insiders is where I give out all my best intel for free. That is available at themoneygps.com. You just scroll down to the bottom, fill in your email address, and you get occasional emails from me with good, short, concise info.